Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So what we want at this point is to be able to click on one item here and then bring it over here. Okay. So two things we need. One, we need an event listener so that when we click on an image here, it sends the item here, right? The second thing is we need to know what data is contained here, what this item is really, and then we can add its information over there. Yes. So for now, what I would do is I'll remove the other extras. I'll just remain with this one item here because it's just a repeat of the same stuff. So let's go back to our home view here and let's look at this section right here. So this is the cart and there's a number there on the cart. Let's put a 0 for now so that we know there's 0 items in there. And then, so which means we also need to know how many items are here anyway. And then we have this table, and then it has a table row items, right? Item. So let's use the same thing here. Let's add a table of body, T-body, like this, which will hold all this other data here. So item until we get to the end of the items, and then let's put the closing T-body tag over there. And so because I want direct access to this table body, what I'll do is I'll add a class and then call it JS. What do we call this? Instead of JS products, this one should be JS items. I have no idea what we can call it. It's entirely up to you. Let's call it items, shall we? So all these are repeated similar things. So let's remove all of them except the very first one, like so. So what this does is if I refresh, that's what I get. So one item is enough. And even this one, we really do not need here. And so let me just cut it out like so. We'll leave this as empty. And then we will do exactly what we did over here. So let me just duplicate this function and I'll call this function, instead of product HTML, it's item HTML, since we're calling those things items. And just like we've put card in here, we're going to put item in there like so. Okay, pretty good. Okay, so far so good. So item HTML, and then we can put some variables in here. But before we do that, let's what do we do? So we need a value to hold everything that is loaded here. Okay, so these are items that are loaded here, quite all right. We've displayed them here, but we need an array that will hold this information. That way, when I click here, I can know exactly where to get that information and put it here. Then we'll need another array that holds the selected information here. Okay, so let's try with, let's make one called products, right? So I'm going to capitalize this one so that I know this is an important value. So we'll just say products like this is equal to, and this is going to be an array. So that's how you create an empty array like that. So there will be products and then there will be items. When we do, when we actually select something, it goes in items. So these products are everything that we have loaded over here. And then when we load something over there, it's going to go in this other array. That way it's easy to remember what's what in here. So we should populate the products table every time we get a search result. So handle result is here, and this is what it's doing. So JSON decoding the information, and then Now the problem here is we haven't put an if statement to check what type of data we're returning. Since in this case we're just doing one thing, this is why this works. But we should put another if statement here and say if obj. Okay, so if obj dot data type, okay, is equal to search, right, like this. If the data type is equal to search, then this is when we do this. Now valid JSON should come here because it's valid JSON from there, and then actually this div JS products, yeah, actually all this is part of this inner part here. So I'm going to move this over there like this and move that here. Alrighty then. So only when it's a search do we do this, right? So once it's a search and we know there's data type here, now this data type is not set. So if I come back to Ajax here and look at what we are returning, we're simply returning the rows that we got. We are not returning anything else, but this is not good. So what we'll do instead is we'll say, let me set rows here to a value. Rows is equal to an empty array, like that. So this syntax is the same as in JavaScript as well. So that in case none of these happens, we still have rows or something. Actually, rows will happen whether we like it or not because there's an else statement here. So no need to do that. It will still happen either way. Okay, so if rows, then we'll do this. Otherwise, it's going to be here where there's an empty and we don't find anything, right? So when we don't find anything, we'll have to clear stuff in there. Let's see. Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. Wait a minute. What if I don't find something? How does this work at all? Oh, it's not even working anymore. What's going on? Wait a second. Oh, okay. So it's looking for data type. That's why. Okay, let me fix this before I go any further. So there are two places. Either rows are found or they are not found. So let's look at when they are found, and we are echoing rows. Now, instead of just echoing rows like this, a JSON decode of rows, what we would do is I'm going to create another variable called info, and then this one will be, what do I make of this? I can make this into an array. That's not an issue. So let's see. Let's say info is equal to an empty thing. And actually, I don't need to set it to any empties. I can just directly put some data there. So I need to put data type there to go back so that we can still use this in our JavaScript, so that it knows that this data it's receiving is for a search. So that's why we are telling it the data type is search. But then since we've done this, now we have to tell it what the data itself is, right? So there's data type, and then there's just the data itself. So here I'll say data is equal to the rows themselves, like that. Okay, great. And then we'll do a JSON decode. Encode here and encode this. So it has data, which has the rows, and then data type, which tells us what to do with that data. So if the data type is search here, we're back to the home side here. And this data is no longer inside obj. Okay, now it's inside obj data. That's where it is now. So in this case, now whether this was an array here or not is irrelevant, because when we get here, this is turned into an object, because that's how JavaScript works. So we empty that, and then we do a loop through obj data. Now we have to make sure that we can loop through it, okay, and that it's not an empty string. So How do we do that? So here what I'll do is this. Let's see, let me say if obj.data is not equal to empty, then let's loop through this. So I'll move this here. Let me see if this works. But then this is going to be obj.data. Okay, so .data.length, because that's the actual array. And then here it's going to be obj.data as well, and then I. So let's see if things work out. Nah, things do not work out. So let's see what it's complaining about. Console.log, there's no complaint here, so no error. So it means things are working as planned, but they are being stopped somewhere. So what I would do is I just want to know where the code is ending, which if statement is not going through. So I'll just put an alert here, just so it can alert me if we are at somewhere in the ballpark there. So we are not here at all. So maybe we are here in this if statement. So let's refresh that. And there we go. So we do get to this point. So this is how you can check at which point your code actually reaches. So it's this part we are not going through. So fine, let's go back here. So it means no rows were found. Otherwise we'd have data type is equal to search. Or what I can do instead, let me do a console.log and see what result I am getting. And let's see what obj is really. So let's come back here. I will refresh and then go to the console, and it's a valid array with actual items in there, which is nice. And it has 5 items, so it's not conforming to this data type thing. So why is that? I'm trying to figure that out. So for each rows, oh, okay, so my bad, I'm encoding rows only instead of encoding info. Sorry about that. Let's do that. Okay, it should work this time. So let's refresh, and there we go. Okay, it's working. Very cool. So let's go back here and things are working as planned. So if it's a search, things go here. If it's not, we'll do something else down here. So now that it's a search, we know things are getting to this point. Once we start adding items here, what I want to do though is update the products table. So the products table here is going to be equal to object.data. So I'm just going to say products is equal to object data, like so. Now, I don't want this to be set to a string in case object data is empty. So I'll only do this if I come to this point here, like so. So once I know it's not an empty string, then let me update that. But if it turns out it's an empty string, it will pass through here. And then the problem is that my div.innerhtml would have been emptied out. So which means we'd have cleared this, but the products thing will not be updated. So instead, let's follow this step here. Let's put products is equal to an empty array like that. So let's empty it because we're emptying what the viewer is seeing. So let's empty the array as well. And then if it's not empty the data that we returned, then let's actually add to it while we loop through the div and add those items to the display as well. So in this case, once I have these items, I should have them inside products. We can prove that by inspecting the element, going to the console, and right here, I'll just call products like this. Okay, once I press enter, you can see that it's an actual array with items in there. So it's actually working just fine. Now I need to be able to click and know what item I have clicked here, and then we'll put it here. So for now, once I click, I just want an alert to show me what I have clicked exactly. What is that item? So we can put an event listener on each of these items, right? We can put an event listener on each of these items, or we can put an event listener on the whole thing here, and then once we click, we just check to see whether what we've clicked is an image, and if it is, then we can respond, right? So how do we do that? Now we need to know what index that image is on based on the products array. So since this is where we are doing the thing, we're saying product HTML, right? And then we are sending the data to add there. But we can send something else. We can send an I there to tell us what, oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, it's actually an array. Is it an array? It's an array of objects, right? Okay, good. Okay, here we can put an extra parameter here to tell us what index we are on this product, because this function doesn't know what index we are on. The index is determined by the I here, right? It starts at 0 and then goes through all the data and adds one item at a time. So this I is critical for us to know what item is on which stage in the products table, in the products array, sorry. So what I can do is when say product HTML, I can put a comma and add I there, so I can send it as an integer. So product HTML here, and then I'll do this and say index like that. So at least we know now what index we are on. That way we can embed the index here inside the image, since we are clicking on the image itself. So what we can do is we can give that image a specific ID. So I can say ID is equal to, and then we can put that $sign and put the index there. Now this property doesn't need to be ID. It can be anything you want. So we can call it index like this. It doesn't really matter what we call it, because we can still extract that data. So I've just shown you this because sometimes you may want to add an ID and use it for some other purpose on the image. And so let's use a trivial name like index there and put our index. So if I now, with what we've done, if I now refresh, you won't see a difference, but if I inspect the element of the image, you will notice that it has an index here with a 0. But let's inspect this one. You see that the index is 1, and if we inspect this one, you see the index is 2, etc., etc. So these are the locations these things are in the array. So that way I can do something like this. So let's go to where we are loading the products, which is JS products right there. So the products will be in here. So when we click on a product, if we add an event listener on this div, it means anything inside it when we click will respond. So let's add an on click right there and just say add item, right? So we'll create a function called add item. Now the event is important here, that way we can distinguish what item we have selected. So if I do that, and I need to create the function called add item, of course. So let me do that. Let me just say function add item and put E there for a response. Now at this point, if I just put an alert in the function here, we will see that every time I click anywhere in here, I'll get an alert. Regardless what I'm clicking on, I will get an alert. But this is not useful. We want to only respond if the item being clicked is indeed an image. So we can check for the tag name of the item that was clicked. So here I can say alert me to the e.target, not the current target, but just the target, whatever was clicked, dot, and then here I'll say tag name like that. So make sure you capitalize the N because it's camel case. Excuse me. If I refresh now and then I click here, it will tell me that this is a B tag, and that is a div, right? This is a div. But what is this? This is an image. It's img, right? So at least we can know what we are clicking on. So this way we can put an if statement where if I grab this and say if, and then I put that, I say e.target.tag name is equal to something like img, like so, then show me an alert. So let's try that again. And if I click on anything that isn't an image, you see I do not get a response, but the moment I click on an image, I get something. Right, very cool. Very nice. So now at least we know we are only clicking on images. Now, once we do this, we can do more interesting stuff like e.target right now. E.target dot get attribute, right? So I want to get an attribute called index that we created there because we added numbers in those indices. So I want to get one of the attributes called index, which we added from here, right? And then the value would tell me what item, where this item is in the products array. So here I'll say var index is equal to that. And then I will say alert, okay, products. So inside products, if I put that index like that, it's going to alert me to the item. Now that won't be very useful because the item is an object. So I'll just do that item.description, right? Then it will tell me what item it is. So let's refresh here and see. Click Omo softener, right? Click burger. Click So Good Milk. So you can see that it's actually identifying what I'm clicking on very, very well. Okay, so now that data just needs to be added to the items list, and then we can just tell it to refresh this thing and then read from the items list like that and refresh. Okay, so yeah, let's try that, shall we? So here what I'll say, products index description, so that's the selected item. So instead what I will do is I will say wait a minute, product index here. What I'll say is I'll say something like items dot push, like this, because push is a function that we use for arrays to add items. Wait a minute, items dot push. So I'm just adding this product index, whatever product is in this index, to the items table like that. And then here what I'll do is console.log items, just so we can see what we are adding there. So I'll refresh this and go to inspect the element in the console. And then when I click on Omo, you can see that there's an array and there's Omo there. Yes, let's click again, and now two items exist. There's Omo and So Good Milk. If we add these biscuits, you'll see that we've added, now there are three items: biscuits, So Good, and Omo. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so that's great. Let's see what more we can do with that information in the next video.